Hello, Guitar Smarts fans. Before you check out this podcast, I want to make you aware of a cool new place where you can interact with other Guitar Smarts listeners. It's a Facebook group called the Guitar Geek Hangout. That's where we hang out and talk about all things guitar. So, if you like the Guitar Smarts podcast, come and chat with Kiran and myself over in the Guitar Geek Hangout on Facebook. Maybe check out some pre-podcast clips and even get involved in asking and answering lots of questions from the other page dwellers. Hope to see you there. You haven't experienced this in me. We've talked quite a lot about doing a guitar safari with the podcast, and I have said that I want to do that, but I'm secretly nervous as well because I'm not a very good person to be around in guitar stores. I'm not, because I get very frustrated very quickly and want to leave. It's kind of like I got to look around at all these things and go, there's no point me being here. I can't have any of them. It's unfair. Greetings, welcome to this week's Guitar Smarts podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is going to be the last show of 2021. As we go into the new year, Kiran and I have spent some time this week discussing the things that we've learned and enjoyed the most about the last year doing this podcast and as guitarists as well. And we're trying to think about what we're looking forward to in the new year, what we're going to take with us and improve upon, and what we're going to change. And, as guitarists, we want to still feel the drive to get better and to improve as musicians, and that's what we've been talking about this week. Thank you so much to everyone that's been on the show this year as well. Really grateful for all our guests, Andy Rudd, Damien Lodrick, Matt Lake, Matt Long, Rory Harvey, and of course more recently Mr. Richard Shaw. You guys have been fantastic, and we're going to get you on the show again in 2022. So as usual, if you want to find out more information about us, come and follow us on our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram. If you want to support the show, you can buy merchandise from us on our Etsy store, or you can donate to us using our buymeacoffee.com/guitar smarts. And one of the best things you can do to support the show, as always, is to like and share with your friends, and also leave a rating or a review in your favourite podcast app. Anyway, Merry Christmas to you all. Hope you've had a wonderful time this holiday season. Looking forward to seeing you guys in January 2022. That's enough from me. Let's get to it. How you doing, me old mate? You well?
I am very, very well. I am on the final countdown for my Christmas break. Yeah.
So is today your last day?
It is.
Oh, fantastic.
It is. It absolutely
fantastic.
is. Yeah. How about you?
I've got another week yet. I'm working through till Christmas Eve, which is fine though, because I think it'll quieten down next week. Some of my team members are off, so I can't really be off. But I've got between Christmas and I've got between Christmas and New Year off, so I'm good.
Nice.
And yeah, things are good, man. I'm just doing my usual check. Just check behind you there, make sure there's no guitars.
Nothing new.
Not that I know. Not that you haven't been tempted this week, right?
I've been really tempted this week. Yesterday, you cannot believe how close and you didn't help in any way, shape or form. egging me on. I was sending you pictures going, look at this. This is a beauty. And it is. Yeah, so I found a Japanese Strat in Lake Placid blue with a rosewood board and vintage specs on it, and it's in near mint condition. It is used, but it's 1 year old and it's basically mint. And actually the price of it, mate, was really reasonable. They're selling brand new if you can get them, because Japanese Strats are difficult to get in this country, although it looks like there's been a run of them into the UK in the last year or so, because some of the bigger guitar shops are stocking them, but they're going for anywhere between £1,000 to £1,200, so $1,500 or so. And the one that I saw on this website that I showed you is going for £750. So it's
brilliant money.
That's actually a really decent saving on what is effectively a mint guitar in quite a rare colour as well. You can't buy that Lake Placid blue over here, at least, as a stock colour on the Japanese Strats. So Yeah, I'm just getting into a bigger and bigger fascination and love affair with Japanese-made guitars from different outfits. I mean, the Fender Japanese Strats have got their own kind of synonymous reputation and aura around them, but there's so many great Japanese builders out there doing some really cool
stuff. Yeah, you say you're saying you're growing into this fascination, but I think it's really a hole, isn't it? You're digging a deep hole.
There's like this kind of mysticism around it, because over here in the UK, we don't get a lot of Japanese instrument brands, at least in comparison to the wealth that exists, right? Ibanez and all of that, yeah, sure. But there is a whole like kind of other side to the Japanese guitar market, where a lot of incredible stuff is being produced, but predominantly for their domestic market. Yeah. And so a lot of it doesn't ever leave their shores, or if it does, it's kind of it's being sold in kind of Asian markets. But when you try some of this stuff and you do get hold of it, some of it over here, like the Fujigen stuff or the stuff that comes out of the Divisier guitars, like Bacchus and stuff, and you try it and you go, wow, these are really, really beautiful guitars. I think it's probably the rarity of them that's making it so appealing to me. Same with a Japanese Fender Strat. It's like, why am I obsessed with Japanese Fender Strat? I can go and get an American Strat or a decent Mexican-made Strat. I think it's just the fact that they're rare in this country to get a Japanese one. That you just go, I want it more now.
Yeah, it's like a complex form of fear of missing out.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of, I know we get all these fantastic guitars here, but there's some fantastic guitars we don't get. How do I get those?
I want those ones now. Exactly. I can go get an American Strat like easily, and that's arguably I think a better instrument than a Japanese Strat. Or is it? Question.
Or is it? Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. I did something for the first time this week. That's not true. I've done something this week that I haven't done for a very long time. Oh. I bought Guitarist magazine.
Ooh.
Have you ever bought Guitarist magazine? I'm sure you have.
Oh, mate. I used that was like my Bible. But we've spoken about this, right, in previous episodes. Like, growing up, trying to learn guitar, trying to learn more about guitar gear. We didn't have. Oh my God, we're going to sound really old now. I didn't want to do this so early in the episode, but we didn't have the internet. We didn't have listeners. Exactly. We did not have the internet. And we're not that old, right? We're in our we're old enough, but we're not that old, right? So guitarist magazines were the thing that we used, right, and utilized, as well as listening to recordings and trying to learn by ear. Yeah. I think, have I bought a guitar magazine in recent times? I will maybe treat myself to one if I'm going on a long haul flight as something to read in the air. Yeah. That's probably the only time I buy a guitar magazine now. So with the blessing that is COVID and having been grounded and not doing any long haul flights for ages, I haven't. In answer to your question, that was about 3 years ago. You asked.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, mate.
It's all right.
Can you tell I'm on the wind down for Christmas? Then?
Yeah, I know.
Although when this episode comes out, it'll be after Christmas. Not just because of my...
It'll kind of be the day after Boxing Day when this comes out. But we're recording it a week from Christmas Eve, so we're kind of in the same kind of time, you know. But I wanted just to speak, because I mean, nothing's really changed. I bought this magazine last night, and I've gone through it a little bit today, and I kind of thought, guitar publication is still pretty much the same, right? Same guys running Guitarist magazine, the same people writing, and that's not a bad thing, but it feels very familiar. Yeah, but one of the main reasons I bought it is because it came with a 2022 Guitarist calendar, right? Which is nothing less than...
Please tell me it's not pictures of Neville Martin on the beach.
That's it. Yeah, it's Neville Martin and Dave Burlock in bikinis. Anyway, so this calendar is nothing short of pornographic, really, from a guitar point of view. And there's some amazing, except for the Murphy Lab stuff. But there's some amazing guitars, just pictures of guitars. I love it sounds sad, really, but I love a calendar of great pictures. That's one of the things, actually, I've always loved about Guitarist magazines is photographically, they represent everything so beautifully.
Yeah,
regardless of the review that they give, everything always looks amazing. But I've got to bring your attention to something, right? And it is Miss May. So Miss May in the calendar.
Which cheeky month is it?
So Miss May, and actually the same picture is on the front of the calendar because it's that good.
Right.
But Miss May is a Patrick James Eggle Macon single cut, which is basically his version of a handmade quilt top Les Paul, I guess you would call it, that type of guitar. And it is just...
You're teasing me now. Show me the picture. Show me the picture. Yeah, that's a top, isn't it?
I've never seen anything that looks as beautiful as that in that kind of form. I mean, that was even as beautiful as any PRS you could see.
Oh, sure. It looks like it's moving. It looks like it's moving, doesn't it?
It's incredible. I've never... It doesn't do it justice looking at it through Zoom like I'm showing you. And I will put a picture as best as I can up on the social media so that our listeners who are listening to this and going, oh my God, I want to see this guitar that Matt's raving about. I'm going to put a picture up of it. But you can also go to Patrick James Eggle's website. There's another British luthier actually that we didn't speak about a few weeks ago who deserves something said about him because he's been around for a long time. Yeah, Mr. Eggle, producing beautiful guitars, and he still produces fantastic guitars. His workshop only produces about 20 guitars a month still in the UK, but everything, it just looks to be utterly perfect. And that is just one of the most beautiful. I mean, that quilted maple top on this guitar, it looks like it's moving. It looks like moving water. It's amazing.
I can tell that from the Zoom picture. There's you can see the depth of the wood grain. It just, that's incredible.
Just beautiful.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Anything that looks as good as that. I mean, I've stared at that a number of times today and just thought, wow.
Oh man! Well, it is a sexy thing. It is a sexy thing.
And of course, in a super equally frustrating and predictable way, as the months go on, the guitars get more desirable. And I'm doing little, quotation marks here. So, what do you think is December's?
Is it a Gibson Murphy Lab?
No, that's November.
Something more.
I'm wrong. That's October.
So there's two more things, presumably more desirable than a.
Yeah, wow. It's an actual 59 and an actual 54. Well, of course. So a 59 Les Paul and 54 Strat. But
there you go.
I'm kind of like, dude, move on. The people are making better guitars than those vintage guitars, but we revere them because they're the originals, right? And I understand why they're revered. I understand why the holy grail of guitars for a lot of people. But I think that's I think that is a kind of distraction from things that are happening now, like that Patrick James Eggle guitar, which I'm sure is as good, if not a better playing experience than anything you could buy. So I feel like I constantly have this frustration. And we talked on text this week about Murphy Lab briefly again. Didn't I?
We did.
When I managed to find online an actual vintage Gibson ES3 335 online for about the same price, if not slightly less than an equivalent Murphy Lab.
Yeah. So let's tell the listeners, because I thought that was actually a really good retort. So we were I got an email from one of the guitar shops that I subscribe to their kind of newsletters and stuff they do. And it was entitled enticingly in the email subject title Gibson Murphy Lab stuff, and I thought, brilliant, I can't wait to open this and just forward it to you irrespective of what's in there. So it was all of their latest Gibson Murphy Lab stuff that was there and coming, or in stock, or soon to be coming, and it literally ran into the multiples of thousands of pounds for these guitars, right? You sent me back an email quite quickly from another guitar shop that specializes in vintage and rare guitars. So much so that they thought that was a good name for the guitar shop, which it is. And said, well, look, here you go. I can spend the same money on an actual 1960s vintage guitar. And it was a super clean SG that you sent me
super clean SG tuning. Not the same guitar as what we were looking at on the Murphy Lab, but
no, of course.
Point was, if you've got money to spend on a Murphy Lab, then arguably what you're trying to buy is a really good replica of a vintage guitar. And what I was trying to say is you could buy an actual vintage guitar for the same money.
Yes. So I think there's a really important point in there. And right, so this episode, which clearly has no structure or agenda today, which I love, I absolutely love, but we're gonna weave one in there, is kind of reflections on the last year, because we've been doing this now for a year. I mean, you and I have been chatting about guitars and other such nonsense for many years. But it's only been a year since we started pressing record and releasing our ramblings to the masses. And thank you so much to all of you that listen regularly. But that's one of the reflections from this year for me, is that this is a really difficult area for other guitar manufacturers to break into. And I'm not sure how many other industries are plagued by this like longing and desire for the old heritage side of it, as much as kind of, you know, people just get a little bit too hung up on the 1959 gear, the 60s gear from Fender and Gibson. And I'm one of those people. Don't get me wrong, but that's one of the learnings for me from this year, is there is so much stuff out there now that is just amazing. And if you can get your head around the fact that it's not come out of Gibson or Fender, you can really be delighted by some of the stuff that you can purchase at a better price point. And it's just been a real eye-opener this last year, as we've talked about different manufacturers, different models of guitar, what you can get for the money. Yeah,
it really has been an eye-opener. I mean, you know my feelings on the Murphy Lab. We've just discussed that, and I don't mean it to be a disparaging kind of view of what that kind of area of Gibson's output as a manufacturer is. I appreciate the skill and the technology that goes into creating these, but you know, for me, when I break it down, I don't see it as any other way as the making fake vintage guitars, in the same way that people used to fake vintage guitars back in the day. You know, I mean, like Slash's guitar was a fake, 59 effectively, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's this, you know, and Gibson are effectively doing the same thing with their own brand.
Yeah.
And which is, you know, I find it strange. And like I said, for me, the only thing is, if you want a real 59, the same website that I got those, that I sent you that link to a vintage Gibson SG Junior that was about £3,500, you know, going on for like $5,000 for our US listeners. They did have an actual 59 or 1960 Les Paul for sale, and that was on sale for £280,000.
Wow.
You know, so well over, you know, $250,000, well over, going on for $500,000 really. I'm surprised Joe Bonamassa hasn't snapped it up, to be honest. It looked fantastic.
Next to all of the other ones.
Exactly, yeah. But that for me is when the Murphy Lab seems like good value, because you know you can get something that looks exactly the same as that, and probably to a lot of people's eyes is identical, for a fraction of that cost, for £10,000. But £10,000 to me is still a lot of money to spend on something that isn't the real thing. So
but then it goes value. Like, I don't know. But then, do you buy these things for yourself, or do you buy them to show to other people, or I don't know? Because what's the first thing that someone your mate comes around for a beer and he goes, "Oh wow, that's a beautiful looking guitar." And if they know anything about guitars, they'll go, "Is that a real 59?" And you go, no, it's a Murphy Lab one. And they go, oh wow, but yeah, okay, it's lovely, yeah, really nice. But it's not the same. You're always going to have to say it's not a 59, aren't you? It's not a real 59.
Yeah, you're always going to have to say that it's not a real thing. Or if somebody comes around and they don't know anything about guitars, they're going to go, "Oh, look at that crappy beat up guitar in the corner that looks old and looks like it's had the Hoover run into it about 16 times. I'm going to pick that up and play it." I'm going to get my greasy pizza fingers all over it, and nobody's going to mind. It's
stop. That cost £10,000.
That's it. That's it. Whereas, you know, if you're in your right mind and you've just bought a Murphy Lab guitar, you're probably going to keep it in the case under the bed and make sure nobody ever touches it, because it's going to be an investment piece, really, isn't it?
Bizarre. I mean, I feel now for the luthiers out there that are just producing some incredible stuff. But hey, look, this is what this show exists for, is that we showcase some of that and we talk about some of that. And the Patrick Eggle stuff, absolutely. Beautiful.
Well, and also, like we spoke about the other week, I found myself looking and just spending time almost perfectly still, stirring some of James Collins's stuff again on his website because it just looks perfect. I mean, it's the exact opposite of that Murphy Lab guitar where it's meant to look as old as it can be. As his stuff just looks so unbelievably pristine, like a new piano almost, that kind of thing. It looks so incredibly well made. And when there's things like that out there, go and spend your money with a local luthier who's spent a year building something to absolute perfection.
Exactly.
Instead of buying a fake 1960s ES335 that you could buy a real 1960s ES335 for the same money. So
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt this fantastic conversation between Kiran and myself. However, if you've listened this far, you probably should go away and subscribe to the show so you don't miss another one. Go and do that now, and then let's get straight back to it.
So that's one of our first big learnings for this year is step away, branch out, do something off the regular beaten track of guitar lust. Nice. All right, what else?
Well, another thing that I've been reflecting on. Which, and I've got to thank you for this. And I hope there's many other listeners that are thanking you for the same thing, which is the home guitar setup revelation for me this year. The podcast we did right at the beginning of the year, I think back in February, forgive me, I can't remember the exact episode numbers, but we did a 2-part series of how to set up your guitar, the 8 steps for guitar setup 101. And since you've taken us through those steps, I've applied that to my guitar every time I've had to change the strings, or every few times I've changed strings, I've gone through, a deeper setup. And for me, it's been just nothing short of a revelation because the comfort I have now playing guitar is something I haven't had for years. Battling with whether it's intonation or action or just a change in small things that can be easily adjusted that I haven't had the confidence to adjust before. Fixing things that need to be fixed, or improving things slightly and having the confidence to do that. It means that I've played guitar twice as much as I usually would.
Brilliant.
Thanks to that. So on reflection for me, if there's anything anybody's taking away from the podcast we've done this year, and I know there's lots of things that we've discussed, but if you for any reason feel like your guitars aren't doing you justice and they need a little bit of work, then go back again and listen to those podcasts about guitar setup 101 and just follow those steps, because for me it's just been a complete and utter revelation. It's been fantastic.
It's great. It's lovely to hear, mate. And it's really nice to hear you also say that these things they're easily doable, right? It's just having the confidence to do it. And once you've crossed that bridge, you realise actually it's quite simple and quite easy and really rewarding. But and it's stuff that you'll keep coming back to time and time again. When something goes wrong with the guitar, you go, well, I know how to fix that now, and I know why it's behaving in that way.
Yeah.
So. Yes, mate. Well, look, the thanks is both ways, because in the same way that you have gone down the alleyway of guitar maintenance, I fear I'm facing my demons on a certainly weekly basis now with guitar theory, and we've spoken a lot about it. In fact, it was one of our most popular episodes earlier on in the year, which really helped springboard the podcast to a new audience. But we've talked a lot about guitar theory and opening up your playing just by learning some new things, and you've certainly spent a lot of time on the podcast talking to me about intervallic playing and how to target notes and the basic principles of just getting back to grips with the major scale and seeing what that can do for your playing. So that certainly has been one of the most enjoyable and still challenging things of the year for me is actually making some progress and moving forward with guitar theory and seeing the ongoing importance of that in terms of pushing my playing to the next level. So I'm looking forward to more of that next year. Definitely, I've got a taste for it now.
Me too. I'm exactly the same. I feel like I'm more inspired to think about those things and to understand things more. And I think we all go through a stage as guitarists where we kind of see the music theory as like some kind of uphill battle or something that's not important. I've learned to play this so far without needing it. Why do I need to understand music theory? But I think I think when you try, you realize when you tie certain things up together, things that you hear and things that you want to play and music theory behind it, you start to realize that understanding theory more can only help you. It doesn't get in the way.
No, not at all.
It's important to learn to apply theory, but it's better to try and apply theory to the things you already can do but can't explain. And then you start to realize, okay, this is great. And I should say, one of the things I've also noted down for this year was just last week's episode with Richard Shaw. And he talked about something I've never heard before, which is this, and I think you know about it, is 4 stages of knowledge. This kind of being unconsciously incompetent, and then being consciously incompetent, then being consciously competent, and then the last stage is being unconsciously competent. And I kind of, when I read about that kind of series, those are the 4 stages of knowing something, right? But from what I can understand, like, for example, I'm unconsciously competent at speaking the English language because I don't have to really think about what I'm saying. As I'm saying it, it just kind of comes out because the thought is all, I'm unconsciously competent. I'm consciously competent at playing blues. But I'm consciously incompetent at sweet picking or alternate, playing really fast. Do you know what I mean? So I've gone, this is great. I feel like I can really map out now that I understand how we learn and know things and apply things through those 4 stages. I can really map out where I am after all this time. Which things I'm unconsciously competent at, which things I'm consciously competent at, which things I'm consciously incompetent at, and start going, I can position all these different things I want to learn and get better at and start getting the right things moving. So I feel really excited about having learned that from Richard and from you in our last episode. And actually going forward into next year, that's one of the things I really want to do with my practice, is to really start mapping things out on that image of those 4 areas, start mapping things out in terms of what am I best at and what do I need to work on the most, and feel like I can start shuffling the right things forward.
Well, that's the key point.
Blues licks.
I mean, that's exactly the key point you made there, which is shuffling the right things forward around that kind of matrix. Because, we spend a lot of our lives thinking, well, if that's the way that I need to do things, then maybe I should just be trying to push everything into that point where, I'm either consciously competent or unconsciously competent at doing it, but to the point where it's just second nature. And then but if you try to do that with even the discipline of playing guitar, you'll soon again get back into that rut that we talked about with guests that we've had on the show, where you just constantly feel like, it's a journey or a battle that you're losing, irrespective of what standard of playing that you've got. I think the beauty of that type of model is also being comfortable when you're happy to not care about how certain things are happening, right? So, certain genres or certain bits of theory where you just go, I'm not really sure how and why I'm doing that, but actually I don't care. That's okay. I'm all right with that. It doesn't matter enough to me to want to spend the time. I'm just happy just being able to know what I want to know with that. But actually, there is this bit of my playing where I do want to be more conscious of what exactly I'm doing to get the desired effect. And then you can start to segment your playing and your practice into helpful kind of strategies, rather than just feeling completely daunted by it and thinking, well, none of this makes sense, and I've got to somehow figure out a way to get it into this state where I just know everything that I'm doing and understand it fully, and that's just not realistic.
It isn't, is it? And it's important as well to do it for learning's sake as well. That's something else that is key that I think I've learned this year. Is I've enjoyed the process of learning things more than I've enjoyed achieving things I wanted to get better at. So whether it's been learning a particular solo or lick or song or chord shapes or anything that I've had to do to go from, not knowing to knowing, it's been the journey between those two things that I've enjoyed, not the achieving of the thing.
It's weird, isn't it? It's weird. Yeah.
It is weird. But it's great. I love having that kind of process, that we said last week in our interview with Richard Shaw about the Will Smith learning how to build the wall with his dad.
Yeah.
And he's saying that, why do I have to build this wall? And his dad was saying it's not about the wall, it's about the brick. It's about the brick, learning to put the brick down. Life is all about putting the bricks down one by one. You don't think about the wall, just think about the next brick. And you know, it's been so important to me this week to think about these things like that, and not to spend too much time kind of thinking about, you know, the bigger picture, and thinking kind of, you know, these are all the huge things that I haven't done yet. These are all the things after 20 odd years of playing guitar, I thought I might be better at now. Well, don't think about that. Just think about the next brick. What's the next brick that I can put into place? Because it's a wall that it'll never be finished. It's
everyone's building their own wall. Yeah,
exactly. So it's just been, you know, that's been a really key thing for me this year. We've talked about so many things, but it's funny that it's the most recent episode we did that I find, you know, has been the most rewarding almost. But
so I love that philosophy about the kind of, you know, the journey and enjoying it as well, and all of that. And it's not necessarily about a complete revolution, but evolutionary steps and things. But having said that, you, my friend, have been on a massive revolution this year. You woke up one day and decided to sell everything and turn your whole rig digital.
Yeah, I did, and I'm happy that I did that. I still see it as justified. And that's not to say that I'll never have, you know, an analog setup again. I know I will at some point, for sure. I want to still have the ability to rock up to a jam night with a Fender Blues Junior in my hand, and maybe one of those small pedal boards we made in that £300 pedal board challenge, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that has been, you're right. I don't think I've really taken the time to appreciate how much of a turn that was in my approach. And I was worried. I got to say, I was worried. The first gig that I did, I remember going to the gig and thinking, is this really going to work the way I want it to work? Am I really going to be able to hear it that well? Are these sounds really going to stand up in a band situation? Because I've only played them at home in my headphones in isolation. I'm sure they sound great, but are they going to cut through? Am I going to have to spend time EQing? So I was worried, and it kind of, I was glad it came together in the end. In the gig, it did sound great. I had some great comments from the other guys in the band. The other guitarist in the band was a guy called Nick Atkinson, whose wife is a lady called Kat Eaton, who's a, you know, like a blues and soul singer, great artist who's touring at the moment. And he's you know, he's the complete opposite. He's got Gibson 335. He's going into a very limited pedal board with, you know, the pedals he had are very classic style kind of things, you know, tremolo and fuzz. And he's going into a Fender Deluxe amplifier. So the exact opposite kind of rig as me. And even afterwards, he came over and commented on the sounds from the Helix and this 8-inch FRFR speaker that I have, basically a tiny, and he just said afterwards, that's an 8-inch speaker. Like, yeah, and he couldn't believe it. And neither could I. Couldn't believe you could get that kind of sound from an 8-inch PA speaker effectively. So that has been quite something. Bizarre, you know, because I remember being in Roadrunner with you when you were doing the same kind of thing. You know, you had the Line 6 stuff going through the Marshall, and I just remember thinking, I've never heard Line 6 stuff sound that good. Even then, you know, what you were playing sounded fantastic through that Marshall and through the Line 6 stuff with the Variacs. Yeah. So I guess I've always known at the back of my head that it can work.
It can work. I mean, I was only ever using that Marshall as a power amp. Really, I was going straight into the effects return, bypassing all the preamp stuff and just using it for the for the amplification stage, really. And I just lugged it around because I liked the Marshall logo and I thought it looked cool. But there was no, it was adding no coloration to the sound. It was literally that pedal board was doing everything: cab simulation, speaker simulation, all the effects. The Variacs was emulating various different guitars. It was like the fate. And the weird thing is I just felt like no one knew, right? No one knew. And having your endorsement of the fact that it sounded good was one of the first lessons in life, which is in a band context, if within the mix it sounds good, then it is good. Yeah. You know, that's you can't get away from that. And I think now, as people are realizing, as modeling technology and all of that has become really, really, you know, incredible, people are just realizing actually there shouldn't be any snobbery towards it. And back in those days, even still with the Line 6 stuff, I still felt like a massive fake, and just because it was emulating everything. But that's where you got to trust your ears and go, well, if this sounds good and if it's giving me the results that I need, then brilliant. And nowadays, fast forward another whatever it is, half a decade to the Helix stuff. I mean, it's so much more powerful and credible in what it's producing in terms of sound. It's
absolutely amazing. And to be fair we should say the Helix stuff isn't even really the superlative product in that kind of area of technology, right? I mean, it's fantastic. A lot of pro musicians use Line 6 Helix stuff, but really the pro musicians out there that are using modeling are using like Fractal Axe FX stuff and the Neural DSP Quad Cortex, which those two really leave the Helix stuff for dust in terms of DSP capability and quality of sounds. And you can't really, if you can't tell the difference between Helix and the real thing, you're not going to tell the difference with the Fractal and the Neural DSP stuff. So the technology now is, there's less argument now for saying, well, there's nothing better than the real thing. Well, it's context. You put it into context. If you're in the room with with an expensive, handmade or hand-wired boutique amplifier from somebody like Dennis Cornell, and you're playing a beautiful guitar and it's a great sounding room, there's an experience added into that sound that makes it feel like it's the greatest thing ever because you're experiencing it. But in the context of, let's say, a recording or a live event or something like that, I don't think that there's room for comparison anymore. I think the digital stuff brings so much to the table in terms of convenience and quality that I don't think it's any more justification. I don't think it's justified anymore to say, well, it's better to have a real amp. I think that just adds less convenience to the situation, and I don't think you get the benefit of it as much. I think the situations where you get the benefit of the real analog gear are few and far between now compared to what you get from digital. That's my view of it.
So one of the things that was always remarked upon above and beyond the kind of sound as an audience member, or even indeed the person playing, was also the feel from a guitarist perspective, right? Touch dynamics, touch sensitivity, the feel that you're playing something modeled versus like truly analog. How have you found that with the Helix? Does it feel like you're playing something does it feel like you're not playing the real deal? Is it a different experience? Or does that not even go through your mind as you're playing it?
There is absolutely no noticeable latency from what I'm playing. So there's nothing that seems to change. Guitarists, we often talk about things that maybe to the uninitiated would seem strange. Like, I know you as a guitarist will understand what I mean about how sometimes you can feel under your fingers the difference in sound, right?
That's exactly what I'm trying to talk about. Yeah, exactly.
Like even with your setup now, your guitar will physically feel different when you might stand on an effects pedal that makes you. There is something about the sound that your rig makes that can literally make the guitar feel different under your fingers.
Exactly. Right.
I still get that with the Helix. I definitely still get that. So that must mean it's nothing to do with air being moved in the room, because most of the time I'm playing my Helix, except at a gig, I'm on headphones, right? So the latency is not an issue. The quality of the tone is not an issue either. So for me, the experience is just utterly fantastic. So I think if you're a guitarist that has a long history of listening to and experiencing your guitar sounds in a room through fantastic equipment, like brilliant Fender and Vox and Marshall amps at loud volumes and the best tones, and you've been used to that for years, this is going to be an alien experience for you. It's going to feel different. I think it's going to be something you have to spend time getting used to, but not for me. For me, it's just immediately it's felt fantastic to play through it.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm so glad it came good for you, mate. And I think, I think this is one of those instances where you bite the bullet and you go for it, and it's come back to reward you. And I think that's great and brilliant for a listening audience to kind of have somebody like you go through that journey. And if they're wondering, well, should I do it? Should I not? Yeah. I think there's at least a bit of evidence that says, yeah, go for it. It works for you.
And also, there's also, as we said before, there's the technological what's the word I'm looking for? The technological advantages that having that stuff brings to the table outside of just the sounds. Now, we had Rory Harvey on the show this year, and Rory's a fantastic musician, somebody that we've known for a long time. And he's been really helpful in helping me get used to the digital modeling side of things and some of the tips, and getting things sounding good. And he sent me a video the other week of basically he's demonstrating the extreme wizardry that he has in this kind of stuff, right? So he's set up a rig where he's got his charts for particular songs set up on a set list on his iPad, and he controls that iPad with a Bluetooth foot pedal.
Yeah.
He's now managed to get it set up so that using MIDI from the iPad, when he can now assign patches on his Helix to songs in his set list.
No.
So all he has to do is select the song on his iPad, the chart for that song comes up for the gig, and now his Helix is in the preset for that song, and all he's done is select the song. You can't do that with an old Fender Deluxe. Obviously, you can't do that with it. But this is what I mean about the power of this kind of technology. It's not just about the sound. It's about the possibilities it brings to you in terms of convenience as a professional musician. So whatever you lose in your experience, if you feel you lose anything in your experience, there's a hell of a lot more to be gained in convenience and time spent making music. So I will leave it there for our listeners to go away and think about. If you're thinking of getting digital kit and you're worried about the experience of playing digital stuff against analog, think about what else you gain other than just the sound of things.
Yeah, wise words. So we're about to go into 2022, mate.
Yeah, I know.
We're on the verge of it. So do you do New Year's resolutions? Do you make a promise to yourself at the beginning of the year about stuff?
Not in a formal way, just in a kind of, it is very natural to kind of think about it as a new year and a new start for things. So yeah, I guess we do try and leave certain things behind and stuff. But have you been thinking about next year and about things that you want to do or achieve, guitar wise, music wise, or anything really?
Every year I set some sort of New Year's resolution. I mean, I think last January I turned vegan for a month. And that didn't last. It was never intended to be it was never intended to last.
No,
I'm an out and out carnivore, but I must say I did enjoy that. And January always brings the annual renewal of the gym membership, which lasts probably till the end of the month, and then gathers dust. But guitar wise, look, I feel we've been making little miniature resolutions all the way throughout the year, which has been brilliant, which is why that's one of the great things that's come from setting up this podcast and doing this with you, is that it's we've set each other challenges, we've encouraged each other to do stuff and supported each other throughout the different things that we've been doing. So look, I guess next year is going to be a bit more of the same, really. But things that have come out of this year that I'm going to definitely take into next year is, as well as the ongoing, keeping up with trying to learn bits more music theory and not getting frustrated by it and taking it at my own pace. Getting back out and gigging has been a wonderful thing from this year that I'm going to be taking through to next year. I've really enjoyed the last kind of 6 months playing. And although the band hasn't worked out in the way that I wanted it to, certainly getting out and playing with some different bands next year is going to be really, really good. I've already got a gig booked for June, so that's
Seriously?
good.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I got someone heard that I wasn't gigging with that band anymore and said, well, would you be interested in doing some dep work for this band? So I might have a regular dep slot for another band, which is brilliant. And I've already got a gig booked for June with them, which is nice. But just to do more of that and get back out there and playing live, I think has been wonderful. So yeah, my resolution is to not let that and all of the frustrations that we're all facing with COVID and things, obviously be safe, be sensible, do it in the right way that's comfortable and safe for everyone around you. But yeah, being able to be out there and playing again is definitely one of those things that I'm going to take into next year, and keep bringing back some of those war stories from gigging and playing live to the Guitar Smarts audience, because that's kind of what we're all about. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. It would have been very easy for me to say, okay, I've done 6 months again gigging during COVID, and yeah, it was challenging, and it was exciting, and it was also exhausting, but that's fine. I'm gonna hang that up again now until things are back to normal. But no, I'm gonna keep going. With that. That's the New Year's resolution.
Fantastic. I think that's great. I think hopefully next year there's plenty of opportunity for more gigging, and we don't fall back down into another lockdown state. I'm sure that won't happen, but positivity is a good thing. I think, I'm taking a lot of positivity into next year as well. For me, my next year for me is about, from a guitar perspective, it's about practicing harder, I feel like I'm taking into the new year a lot of motivation and momentum in becoming a better guitarist. And I want to really try and continue that and maintain that momentum. I'm really enjoying feeling like a learner guitarist again. Like we said earlier on, I'm really enjoying looking at the things that I can't do and trying to make minimal gains, putting those bricks down. But also next year is a big year for me because I turn 40 next year in October, and that means I'm getting a new guitar.
Yes, it does.
I'm going to get myself, I'm going to get myself a new guitar next year because I don't treat myself to these things. You haven't experienced this in me. We've talked quite a lot about doing a guitar safari with the podcast, and I have said that I want to do that, but I'm secretly nervous as well because I'm not a very good person to be around in guitar stores. I'm not, because I get very frustrated very quickly and want to leave. It's kind of like I got to look around at all these things and go, there's no point me being here. I can't have any of them. It's unfair, and I want to. It's like some form of torture, but I need to get through it.
You do need to get through it, and now we have a reason to do that because I'm the same, right? No, I'm not the same, but there is part of me that kind of goes to a guitar shop and goes, well, while we're here, we might as well buy something, right? And so, because we've come all this way, right? So we might as well buy something. So it's the other side of the addiction, which is, so I think there'll be there'll be a yin and a yang going on in there where we might find some perfect balance in the middle, which is good. That's one thing. But now we have the perfect excuse, which is we're doing this for our audience members out there listening globally, to go and not necessarily buy things for ourselves or feel guilty about not being able to or wanting to buy stuff and then not buying it or whatever, any of that. We are literally going for reconnaissance. That is our mission. And we are going to find examples of things that we would like to recommend to our audience to try out. And if we get something for ourselves, we get something for ourselves. If we don't, we don't. But it's
what will be.
What will be exactly.
But yeah, I guess going into next year, I feel like I've got more reason to let myself enjoy it a bit more. But one of the other things I'm toying with the idea of, separate to that, is potentially trying to find a guitar for a restoration project. Whether that's like a guitar project on eBay, something like, who knows? Something like an old Strat or a parts caster, something that just needs a bit of love and attention, and maybe trying to get something and going, this can be a bit of a project over the next couple of years, maybe over time, to try and build something unique that needs restoring, that maybe has a bit of a story behind it. Who knows? I don't know. I love the idea of...
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I really like the idea of that.
Yeah. I thought
we could get some... Yeah, we could do that. We could also get some kit guitars, couldn't we? And
we could get some kit guitars. Yeah, absolutely. And try and build
and just and to build them. We could take some votes with the Guitar Smarts audience. What we should do with them? Like, should we put these pickups in them? Should we paint it this color? Should we put this on it? Yeah, we could do that, couldn't we?
It's a good idea. Yeah. Maybe it's a good idea now. But when we're putting EMGs into electric pink,
into a ukulele,
into an electric pink ukulele, we'll think twice. Thanks, dear listeners.
Let's be one of a kind. And we could cryogenically freeze it and painstakingly take a razor blade to it to put some genuine lacquer cracking in it, and then we could call it the Guitar Smarts Lab.
There we go.
One of a kind. We'll call it the Murphy. We'll call it the Murphy. £500,000. Yeah.
Just bargain. I have one last resolution as well, and this came out of a podcast we did a few months back where we were talking about, do people make albums anymore, and listening to music, and I had the realization when we were doing that podcast that I can't remember the last time I sat down to listen to music for the sake of listening to music. I listen to music when I'm in the car. So I'm driving. I listen to music when I'm working at home, and if I'm not in calls and I'm working on documentation or anything like that. And in my day, as part of my day job, I write a lot of documentation in my day job. And if I'm working, that's when I'm listening to music. But I'm working, so I never ever anymore sit down to just listen to music like I used to when I was a lot younger, before the internet, before smartphones, and before all these other things that distract. I used to sit down, in the living room with my headphones on and put a CD on the stereo system, and sometimes my dad would tell me to turn it down because it's too loud, which it always was too loud, so. But I was sat, at that point in my life listening to music, and I was completely focused on what I was listening to. Yeah. So I've said to myself that I want to dedicate at least 1 hour every week in the year ahead to listening to music and doing absolutely nothing else whilst I'm listening to music in that hour, and choosing something to listen to, putting an album on. It almost certainly will always be an album, because I'll want to put that album on, and whether it's on Spotify or something, whatever I'm listening to it on, whether it's my phone or the laptop, I'm going to have, I'm going to put the music on, and I'm going to step away, I'm going to go and sit down somewhere, and I'm going to sit and just enjoy listening to music without any other distraction. I think that's something I really want to get back into. I miss that.
That's such a really coincidental resolution, because I've been doing something similar over the last couple of weeks. Yeah. And exactly as you described, mate, I used to do this all the time, and then life and distractions get in the way. Yeah. And I just found myself not really being interested that much on. I think I'd completed Netflix and Amazon Prime Video and every other streaming service. I've watched everything there is to watch.
Completed it, mate.
Done. Completed it, mate. Done. Completed it twice. I mean, it's literally like, I cannot. I don't know what happened a couple of weeks ago, but I was just like doing the never-ending cycling through, trying to find something to watch, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. So I just turned it off, and then for the last 2 weeks, I've just been listening to music in the evening. And my God, wow. Just, well, I've got some playlists that I've been building in Spotify just for that purpose, and I'll share them with you, and we can chat about that. But it all came from this podcast and chatting to you about music and stuff that I'd realised I hadn't listened to, that you were recommending to me, and saying, if you haven't listened to this, go and listen to this. And so I've been doing that, and in the process, realised that I just like sitting and listening to music in the evening rather than watching TV on some nights, and it's wonderful. It's really, really lovely to do that. So definitely go for that, mate. And Spotify have clearly been listening to the Guitar Smarts podcast, because in the last month, and this had nothing to do with Adele and the release of her new album and her lobbying Spotify, but everything to do with us, I'm sure. They've removed the shuffle function on albums now on Spotify. So you can obviously select a track if you wish to listen to an individual track, but if you just press play on an album, it now plays in the sequential order that the artist put the songs in, i.e. the composition of the album. And I think that's just a really small, lovely step backwards, but in some ways, like, for the better.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Not everything should be shuffled. I think there's an important thing about the artist's intention should be there, right? I mean, many moons ago, when I used to work in cinema engineering, and we used to go to cinemas and set up cinema sound systems and things. I remember one of the first times I did that, working with an engineer, and he was using a measurement microphone to test the response of the room, the auditorium. A lot of people might not realize this, but when they're setting up sound systems, they spend hours making sure that the audio response in the room through the EQ is completely and utterly flat. So you're not boosting anything in the room. Or if the room naturally boosts things at, say, 800 hertz, then we bring that down in the EQ. And I always thought, maybe it's for sound quality, or maybe it's for, just making sure things sound even, or we just get rid of issues. And the engineer I was working with made it very clear that it's because the cinemas take the intention of the producer and the studio that produces that film seriously, such that if the room has a complete flat response, then you hear what that person has intended you to hear when they've edited it in the editing suites and things. And I think that should be thought about as well when we listen to albums and we listen to music. That artist has intended for you to hear something a particular way. And I think the order of play of those tracks is something that they think about as well. I think it's great that that's something that Adele has kind of vouched for and has asked Spotify to do. Because I think maybe we don't realise how important that is in the message that we get from the music.
Totally. Absolutely. It's, it's brilliant. Really, really good. Well, mate,
there we go.
I think it is time to get ourselves ready for our New Year's resolutions. And
it is.
I'm looking forward to another year of recording this podcast with you, mate. It's been an incredible year. I'm so grateful for all the listeners that are following us and that are listening to us regularly across the globe. It's an absolute privilege that you guys listen in, and feel free to get in touch with us as many of you have. We always love hearing from you, and I can't wait to record some more shows with you next year, buddy, and get you into a guitar shop and make you feel incredibly uncomfortable. I can't wait.
Yeah, I know you can't. You're absolutely right. I know you can't wait. One thing
Let's go tomorrow.
Yeah. One thing as well, I think, is because obviously we'll be back in the new year. This is going to be the last show of 2021, but we should thank. I want to thank from both of us, Andy Rudd, Damien Lodrick, Matt Lake. Damien Lodrick we've had on a couple of times. Matt Long, great blues guitarist. Richard Shaw, of course. Who else have we had on as guests? I think Rory Harvey,
Rory
of course. I did say Rory, of course. Session legend, future session legend, Rory Harvey. Everyone who's kind of contributed to the show. If you've commented on anything on social media, or if you've emailed us around anything, or if you just let us know that you're listening. Didn't you have a guy who was a trucker somewhere message us? I can't remember. I'm sure you told me that you had a message from someone who was like a long distance driver who's really loving binging on our podcast. Messages like that make my day.
Yeah, really. Absolutely. Big shout out to Ray. Yeah, absolutely. But we get messages from all across our listening audience, and it's just so lovely to hear about people and their own journeys and what they're doing, and if some of the stuff we talk about resonates with them, that makes it all the worthwhile for us. So
absolutely,
fantastic.
So more of that next year. Looking forward to it, buddy.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Take care. Have a brilliant time with the family, and I'll speak to you in 2022, mate.
You too, mate. Merry Christmas. All the best, buddy. I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, pal. Bye, mate.
Take care, mate. Ta-da. Thanks so much for listening in this week. I hope you've really enjoyed the show. Just one last moment to say Merry Christmas to you all. Hope you have a fantastic new year, and we'll see you again in 2022. Take care.